She had been shot 5 times by her ex-boyfriend, who stalked her. He jumped out of his car. He was so intent on killing her, he left his car running.
When Barbara Pettis got the news on August 24th, she could not believe what she was hearing. Her great-grandniece, who lived in South Carolina, was dead.
She had that big smile, and she always smiled. She was an angel.
The Richland County Sheriff's Department arrested and charged a man with the murder of Jalen Sarah Hasty, calling it a case of domestic violence, something Pettis knows a lot about.
And I've had fractured nose, I've had a concussion, I've had black eyes, and I've been choked to where I was unconscious. He had a firearm illegally, and I didn't doubt for a minute that he would use it.
Pettis filed a restraining order against her abuser, which by law kept him from legally owning a gun. But United States versus Rahimi, a Texas case now before the Supreme Court, could end that practice. Jessica Levinson is a CBS News legal contributor.
The question before the court is whether or not they will uphold this federal law preventing those who are subject to domestic violence restraining orders from owning guns.
Zaki Rahimi was under a restraining order for domestic violence when he carried out a string of shootings and threatened a woman with a gun. No one was shot, but police searched his home and found 2 firearms, a violation of the 1994 federal law, which made gun ownership illegal for anyone under a domestic violence restraining order. A grand jury indicted Rahimi, and he ultimately pleaded guilty. He was serving his sentence when the Supreme Court set a new standard for gun cases,
which says restrictions will only be upheld if it's consistent with the history and tradition of the Second Amendment when it was ratified in the late 1700s.
So Rahimi was able to appeal his case, arguing the law violates his Second Amendment rights. Levinson says this ruling could impact other gun laws and put guns in the hands of those with restraining orders.
If the court decides in favor of Rahimi in this case, it really means that any similar laws dealing with restrictions on those who have, for instance, been convicted of domestic violence, all of those will fall. And I think those in favor of these laws would say it would make people much less safe.
Research backs that up. A study published in the American Journal of Public Health shows women are 5 times more likely to die from domestic abuse when the abuser has access to a firearm. In the case of Jalen, that's exactly what happened.
If you could talk to her today, what would you say?
And I'm sorry. I'm sorry that I didn't give you the tools necessary, and that I miss and love you so much.
Pettis is turning her pain into purpose, working at a Dallas women's shelter for survivors of domestic violence, where she hears even more stories like her own, stories she thinks the Supreme Court justices need to hear before they decide the fate of women like her.
Now, I feel like they need to come to places like this. I feel like they need to sit and talk to women like me that have been there and that have survived it.
Tom Hansen, CBS News.